What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. I'm LotusAsakura, the one who never knows best, and in today's video I want to bring you guys a Tekken 8 tier list. When Tekken 8 first came out, I actually was making a bunch of tier lists, but they were all kind of like not serious ones. It had nothing to do with how strong I thought the characters were. Making tier lists based on strength, which is obviously the most common and more popular way of making tier lists for fighting games, right? It's something I don't really do too much these days, and it's mostly because even though I really enjoy those conversations and find tier lists very interesting and fun to talk about, it got really exhausting and draining because I feel like the people who care the most about tier lists are the people who they least apply to and the ones who should be the least concerned with them. And just feel like there was a lot of like draining and conversation surrounding them, and not Tekken, but just every fighting game. And so you'll notice that it's been a very long time since I've made like an actual strength-based tier list for any game. That being said, this is going to be the first one I do for Tekken, and it's going to be my thoughts on how I think the characters stack up based on the totality of season 1 and where we're ending things off. As of today, later today, season 2 will officially be releasing. We'll be getting the patch notes and the patch for a brand new version of the game, but I kind of want this as a reference point and just kind of have like a yeah, I guess just like a reference point, and just like have my thoughts gathered all in one spot for where I feel like the game left off in season 1. So with that being said, we're gonna get into it. This should go without saying, of course, but I'm gonna say it anyway. These are just my personal thoughts and opinions based on my own experiences, skill, and knowledge of the game, as well as a lot of perspective that I've gained through watching the game, right? I watch tons of streamers, I've watched plenty of tournaments. Not to say that, my opinion is the most informed, but yeah, so take it with a grain of salt. I'm sure there's a lot of this that you guys will disagree with, but with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it. And I think I'm going to rename some of these tiers. First one, we're going to call this What Were They Thinking? Because that's what I ask myself when I take a look at these characters. Something else I want to note as well is that you'll see that I'm going to order these tiers or change these tiers so that the lowest tier is actually A tier, because I think overall character power in this game is actually extremely high, so much so to the point where I don't believe that there are any bad characters in Tekken, or at least in Tekken 8. I think that the game is decently balanced, all things considered, for lack of a better word, just in terms that like you can really play any character and find some success because every character is strong. Obviously some are stronger than others, but as it goes to show, like character power is very, very high. Too high in my opinion. I would like to see it come down, but it looks like it's going to go even higher in season 2. That being said, up first, I think we have Dragunov, right? Dragunov has been the best character throughout Tekken 8 so far. I don't really think I even have to talk too much about him. Yeah, you've seen what Ulsan does, Atif, Fear, Silence, and basically everybody who's picked up this character, right? Dragunov has probably been the best character in Tekken. And these tiers are not going to be ordered within themselves, maybe loosely or vaguely, but I'm not going to worry about ranking them in terms of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know what I'm saying? I'm just not too concerned with that. I also don't feel like I have enough information specifically about every single character to confidently rank them that specifically. I can place them within tiers, but I think when I start trying to order them, it becomes a lot more difficult, and I don't have quite as much information as I would like to comfortably do that. But I think next up we're gonna go Yoshimitsu. Again, one of the dumbest characters in the game for sure. He's one of those characters that he's really hard to hit. You have to play so careful against Yoshimitsu, and even when you have like a lot of plus frames, you're so scared to really take your turn, because he's got that down forward too that's very evasive. His hop kick is very evasive, or hop knee, I guess, right? And then beyond that, you have Flash, which is one of the absolute scrubbiest, dumbest moves in the entire game. It literally is a game-breaking tool in my opinion. I don't even believe it should exist, frankly speaking, but that's just me. Then you add in like the busted Oki he has and the unblockable sweep. This character is just undoubtedly like one of the best in the entire game. Similarly, Nina, also one of the best in the entire game. She's kind of the opposite of Yoshimitsu, where as opposed to making you scared to take your turn, she doesn't let you take your turn. Strings for days, very, very oppressive, just incredible offensive pressure, very good at enforcing her will, very strong movement as well, has one of the absolute best power crushes in the entire game in Blonde Bomb. And then on top of that, she's powerful in heat, chip damage is crazy, and it's just hard to fight back against her. And she's a matchup nightmare for a lot of characters on the roster. You've seen what Arslan has done with this character. You've seen what Victimo was able to do, Jod from EU. So yeah, I think it goes without saying he's one of the best. And then we have Jin, who in my opinion is like maybe the most well-rounded character in the entire game. I really don't feel like he has any true weaknesses, if I'm honest. I mean, he just does everything. Like he's literally a perfect character. He's super strong. He's very easy to pilot. I think him and Reina have really become like baby's first Mishima, where these are Mishimas for people who like the aesthetic but aren't really good at playing Mishimas. Because then you play Kazuya or Devil Jin or Heihachi. I think if you really want a much more true, I don't know, because Tekken has changed a lot about these characters, and that like the idea of what I have what a Mishima is has evolved a lot. But regardless, you don't need things like wave dashing and electrics to do well with these characters. And by do well, I mean, like, you know, play at like a high rank online. If we're talking about tournaments, which I am taking that into consideration as well when I make this tier list, obviously you're going to need to be able to do something like an electric, right? But regardless, when you look at like he has the access to the electric, one of the most powerful tools in the game. He has down to the 2-1-4, one of the best heat smashes in the entire game, a good throw game, just really powerful tools all around. It's just hard to not put him in the top 5. But then when we talk about top 5, I think I actually want to add a little annotation here, something in parentheses. I think these next characters are all in the top 5 conversation. I don't really have a firm opinion on who I think is the 5th best character, or whoops, can I hit what? Whatever. We'll just take away the parentheses just because it looks off. Regardless, these next 2 characters, I don't really have a firm opinion on like which one is better than the other and who belongs in that 5th spot. I think these are like almost universally agreed to be the top 4. And then it becomes a conversation, right? So you have a character like Kuma, who I think is largely carried by his heat, but obviously with heat being such a powerful and important tool in the game, that matters a lot. I think you can make the argument that Kuma has the best heat in the entire game. Would I say that? I don't know, but I wouldn't argue against it. Just an insane amount of chip. It's crazy damage out the wazoo. You gotta mention the fact that Kuma, being one of the bears, has a really screwed up hurt box that makes him very evasive and kind of hard to hit. And you know, it's funny too, because I think Panda's gonna probably be down here at the bottom of the list. But Kuma's heat is just so crazy that I think it puts him in that conversation for being a top 5 character. We've seen what Rangchu was able to do at TWT, actually winning the event. We saw what Nino did to Joka. We've seen what Sour Piggy's capable of doing. Yeah, we've actually seen a decent amount of Kuma at high level, and I think he's in that conversation. Then moving on, you have Law. Law is another character I think is in that top 5 conversation. I think this character's kind of flown under the radar for a lot of people for most of Tekken's lifespan so far. Even though I think he's very powerful and plays Tekken 8 very well. We don't really see a ton of him. The only Law player that immediately comes to mind is like Double, right? But I guess you also have like Gosane or Rip, or yeah, there's really not that many Law players, to be honest. But he is a character I think is very strong. You have obviously 1-1-1, stupid string, right? The while standing 4, you have the nunchucks, the slide mix-up. It's very powerful. And then he gets the guaranteed nunchuck after slider. They ended up nerfing slide because you were just able to loop that over and over again. But I still think it's extremely powerful. I think the slides in general in this game are very strong. Every slide character I think is pretty solid, even if Lee's a little bit weaker than, like, let's say Shaheen, who's also probably going to go somewhere up here. But yeah, next we have Alyssa, who has some of the best movement in the entire game. Then you have all these offensive transitions into chainsaws, which do egregious amounts of chip, just constantly forcing you into RPS situations. Plays big Tekken very well. On top of the fact she has all these like gimmicky moves as well. This is a character that I think a lot of people do consider very strong, even though much like Law, we don't necessarily see a ton of her. You do have Chanel, obviously, who plays like Alyssa and Zafina and just plays a lot of the waifu characters, right? And then you have Cuddlecore and Obscure, and even though they haven't done, you know, as well as they did in 7 so far in 8, we've still seen them perform at high level and do well with this character. But yeah, she's a character that I think is like unquestionably in that conversation, like without a doubt, like a high tier, top 10-ish range character. When you talk about chainsaws, when you talk about her screwed up hurt box, she's like really evasive. Like I said, she has some of the best movement in the game, and then also her hurt box just makes her like kind of weird at times to hit. I feel like, yeah, I think she's in that conversation. Another character in that conversation, King. Some of the best power crush moves in the entire game, like just ridiculous armor. Some of the best counter hitting tools. You have counter hit down 4-2-1, which is like a hit confirmable 13 frame launcher. You have the mix ups, the Jaguar sprint. Just very, very silly character. Muscle armor, obviously very powerful and neutral and just strong in general. You go down a list of like all the things King is like really, really good at and all the things he has going for him, and you're like, oh yeah, by the way, he's a grappler, so he has some of the best throws in the entire game as well, with giant swing and the million damage that it does when you're next to a wall, and the shining wizard, and and that's not even mentioning the other slew of throws that he has as well. There's just some of the highlight ones that stand out the most, right? But I think King right now is maybe the most powerful he's ever been in Tekken, while simultaneously probably being the easiest he's ever been in Tekken. I don't know, but he's definitely up there. He's definitely, if not the easiest and most powerful, it's definitely up there. He's in that conversation. I think he's a top 10 character and could be number 5 on the list. Like I said, these aren't necessarily in order. I think these are like all on the same tier for the most part. But yeah, then I think to kick off the next tier, we're gonna go Brian. I think Brian is a character that has risen a lot in terms of how strong people think he is. This is not a character that I felt like was getting talked about nearly as much as some of these others were, but in the last couple of months, it feels like people are complaining a lot about him when it comes to his toolkit and what he's able to do. We saw recently at the exhibition that they had between Korea and Pakistan, where Nii and Lohai put on incredible performances with this character. They're starting to figure things out and show what he's capable of. Bilal, obviously from Pakistan as well, very, very powerful Brian player. And Brian is basically, you get hit, you die. Obviously, he's a counter hit character, has a slew of very powerful counter hitting tools, and once you get hit by one of those, you're going to get carried from one end of the stage all the way to the other and just eat a million damage. Combine that with all his taunt setups and also taunt heat smash, which makes it that he actually has an unblockable heat smash, which, by the way, I didn't realize you could like buffer that. You got a pretty decent window to do it as well, so it's actually super, super easy to do. When I found out that it was bufferable, I went into training mode and tried it for myself, and I got it on the first try, and I did it multiple times, and I was like, oh, this is significantly easier than I thought it would be, just because his taunt stuff is normally not that accessible, but unblockable heat smash. So yeah, pretty stupid. Very, very strong. Not to mention quarter circle back 1, quarter circle forward 1+2, hatchet kick, just all these crazy, crazy moves that he has. And yeah, I think Brian belongs up there. Another character who I still think is very strong, although I used to think he might be in the top 5, but after talking with some other players and watching some footage and everything like that, I gotta go with Fang. I think Fang is honestly still a very, very powerful character. Again, somewhere in that same vein as Brian, but we've seen what he's capable of. We've seen Joka, we've seen Kakoma, we've seen Mughal actually swap to Fang when the Claudio isn't working out. Claudio's probably going to be somewhere in this tier as well, spoiler alert. But yeah, the shifting clouds, back 1, great pokes, powerful lows, throw mix-ups, the evasion that this character has with the crouch dash and some of his tools and the Kempo stance and everything like that, I think make Fang very, very strong. And then next, I'm gonna go with Shaheen. This is another character who honestly, I feel like I low-key feel like you could move these characters up and they could be in that conversation for being potentially top 5. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna move him down though. Shaheen almost feels like he should belong up here though. I'm not. I'm gonna leave it here for now, but I could low-key move these guys up. But regardless, Shaheen was a character that did get nerfed, but I still think he's very, very strong. I don't think we see him a whole lot just because he's not that interesting. In my opinion, I think he's very, very boring. And I think a lot of people agree with that sentiment, which is why you don't see him as much. But we saw what AK was doing. We've seen Edge pull this character out. We've seen him play it a little bit, but not as much. He got nerfed, and then we kind of stopped seeing him as much, like at least online and people's streams and everything like that. Yeah, he's got forward 2-3, which I think is absolutely silly. The guard break mixed up his heat is absolutely silly. He's got slide, which is very, very powerful. I think this character is still very, very strong and could still probably be in that conversation for being a top 5. Next, we have a character that I believe is largely underrated, and that is Steve Fox. So check me out. Currently, I think that there are characters that are absolutely stronger than Steve, but I think there are characters that are going to continue to fall while he's a character who's going to continue to rise. Very much like Brian, he's a character that relies on you kind of playing at your opponent's pace and kind of getting them to mash into your counter hits and everything, right? Which is something that he does very, very well. He has good pokes that you can use to bait your opponent into wanting to fight back and then mashing into your counter hits. You hit him with a back one, you hit him with some of his other tools. He's got the Lionheart stance, he's got peekaboo, he's got flicker, he's got these stance mix-ups and everything like that. He's got the mix-up where you have to guess between him hitting you with a guard break high or mid heat engager mid that's safe on block. So I think the character is very, very strong, man. I think Steve is a character that's only going to improve with time as people get better at the game and get better at, figuring out their opponent's pace and everything like that. The same way players like Knee and Lohi have started to figure out Tekken 8 more and gotten adept with Brian, I think those exact same two players will probably do the same thing with Steve, as well as other players as well. We've already seen what Numan is doing with this character, was putting on a clinic in the Korea versus Pakistan exhibition, right, with Steve. Did he lose a single game? I don't think he lost a single set all weekend during that event. And that's a testament to me, not only how strong he is as a player, but also that Steve probably got a couple of tricks up his sleeve that may not be as immediately clear to everybody as it was before. He's a character that's only gotten buffed so far, or that has mostly gotten buffed so far, and might even continue to get buffed more in season 2. And I guess we'll see. But I think Steve's stocks are on the rise, and he's already a character that I think is probably stronger than he's currently perceived. Next, I mentioned him already. I'm gonna say Claudio. Claudio definitely goes up here. We've seen what Mulgold is doing. Shadow is a player who normally plays Claudio, or played a lot of Claudio on 7, but he's been very adamant about picking Zafina. He seems to believe very much in her strength and thinks that she's very good. But Claudio just looks so deadly every time I feel like we've seen this character between Tetsu and Mulgold and Shadow when he does play him. The running 2, the sidestep 4, the back 1, what is it, down back 1+2 I think it is in Heat. You guys know the uppercut, the launching uppercut. Forgive me if I'm wrong on the input, but just very, very strong. Claudio's a character with a very short move list, but every move he has is like incredibly good. So yeah, definitely up there in that conversation. Again, another character that I low-key wouldn't mind moving even higher. I don't know. Like this is, like I said, this is, I'm kind of making this up as I go along. I've thought about this before, but yeah, this could be subject to change at any moment. But I'm just kind of trying to figure out like where my head is at with the game and how I'm feeling going into season 2 about this roster. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and throw Reina in this tier. I think Reina is actually a very, very powerful character. She's been downplayed a little bit by some of the other Reina players, but I think she's still very, very strong. She's obviously gotten nerfs, but forward 4-2 is still one of the best neutral skip tools in the entire game, which obviously leads into stance, which leads into a mix-up of sorts. And she's getting even stronger in season 2. Like one of Reina's biggest weaknesses currently is that she doesn't have good lows. I had somebody in my comments try to fight back on that and say that that wasn't true, but she gets launched for all of her lows. We would call that being a character with bad lows. You know what I'm saying? Or Sentai 3+4, down back 2, like these moves are not the best. Not the best. But she makes it work because she has very powerful mids and an unbreakable throw that's a high that makes you want to duck. You have Sentai 3, which is a plus on block high that makes you want to duck. So, you know, you have to use these other tools in order to get them to crouch as opposed to using your lows. And she does it very well. Not to mention that, again, like I said earlier, she's baby's first Mishima. She has access to Hell Sweep, which goes into stance, which leads you to another mix-up. She has access to an electric, but she doesn't even need it because she has a down forward 2. Well, I say she doesn't need it, but like it's not the only launcher that she has. You know what I'm saying? If you're playing like Kazi, it's like you really gotta be able to electric, right? He doesn't have like a standard hop kick or down forward 2, but she's got a 15 frame down forward 2, much like Jin does with his hop kick, right? So it just makes her that much more accessible to a more casual player, and also just more reliable if you're not somebody who can consistently electric, or if you're, you know, just not confident in the moment for a specific punish or with punish or anything like that, right? But yeah, this character is very, very strong. I don't think I need to speak too much about Reina, honestly. She's so popular. I think most of you are well aware of her strengths and weaknesses, and some of those weaknesses are going away in season 2, so she might be even higher on the list when things are all said and done, which I wouldn't be necessarily mad at because I play her myself. Next, I'm gonna throw Clive up here, man. We saw a lot of Clive when he originally released, and I'm not a fan of this character, so my bias might still be a bit at play here, but the ridiculous range, parry is stupid, stance mix-ups, 1+2 is stupid, the guard break mix-up in Heat is stupid. He should be a lot more linear than he is. I feel like there are characters like Lydia, for example, who are way more steppable than he is. I feel like his hitboxes are kind of out of control, I'm not gonna lie. Ridiculous wall carry, really good damage. I think Clive is still very, very good. Next in this list, I'm gonna throw in June. I think June is another character who kind of gets overlooked, and she might not be quite this high, but I feel like she's pretty strong. You know what I mean? Is she as strong as Brian and Fang and them and Shaheen? Probably not. Probably not. I'm gonna change my mind. I'm gonna move her down a little bit. We'll talk about June. We'll talk about her now since I already dragged her up here. But she's powerful on defense. She controls neutral very well. Obviously, she's got the parry and Sabaki and everything like that. You have, sidestep 4, the plus on block mid. She's got some very, very powerful tools that are probably only going to get more powerful in season 2. She's a character that was very strong on release, got a lot of nerfs, and then since she got nerfed, people like kind of stopped talking about her and overlooked her. Like I said, it's very similar to who was I saying, like Clive or like a Shaheen, right? I think just because she did get nerfed, you're like, oh, she's not that great anymore. And that's not true. There are other characters who got nerfed and they actually fell off. Judah's a character who like did get weaker, but I still think she's very, very good. Also, the fact that she can kind of save herself, like cover her own ass by like spending some HP, which is recoverable, and then you know, make things that would otherwise be punishable safe on block, I think is like very underrated. Going back up to the S tier though, I think there's a few more characters that I would put up here. And I think Paul and Xiaoyu both go up here. So I'm gonna go Paul and Ling. Paul is Damage, the character. Yeah, you just get robbed so easily by Paul. He gets one hit and you blink and your health bar is completely and totally missing. Deep Dive 4 is crazy. Forward 2 is crazy. Yeah, I think Paul is mad underrated, and they keep buffing him, and I hope they don't continue to buff him even more, because I think I don't think he needs any more than what he's already got. Then you have Xiaoyu, who's a specialist character, right? But she just kind of makes you play the game very differently, similar in a way to like Yoshimitsu, just because while she doesn't have something like Flash, she has AOP, which makes her like super hard to hit, and she has all this built-in evasion and movement in her moveset, right? And so it's like you don't really want to like press into her too quickly or too often, because she just AOP ducks and then you just die for it, right? Heat engagers. Her heat is stupid. The mix-up is crazy. And she's the only character in the game that gets a mix-up off her heat smash, both on hit and on block. Getting a mix-up after heat smash is already crazy as it is, right? It's already a super powerful tool. She gets it whether she hits you with it or you block it, and that to me is absolutely absurd. Like I think that's like pretty ridiculous. Moving on, we have Lily. I think Lily is another character who is similar to like a Shaheen or a Clive or a June, but even more so than June, right? Where she was very, very powerful. We saw her win Evo Japan, right? Yeah, that was I think it was Evo Japan was won by Lily. That was Chikuden, correct? And she got nerfed, but it's still incredible movement. Very, very strong altogether, in my opinion. Feisty Rabbit is still very, very powerful. And she's another character that I think gets downplayed a little bit, but I personally am of the opinion that she's still pretty strong. And I think the last character I'm gonna probably throw in here is Heihachi, who becomes arguably like the best character in the game, like once a game, because of Warrior's Instinct. And then you throw in like, obviously he has the Hell Sweep and the counter hitting launch property on that, and has electric, has forward 2, down back 2 is obviously not very safe, but it's still very powerful. The stance mix-ups and the pressure, especially if you're talking about like in a tournament setting or like a 1-2 setting, you can get robbed so easily and very quickly overwhelmed by his pressure and his mix-ups and everything like that. The 1-1-2 10 frame punish, that's also a wall splat. Yeah, I think Heihachi is very strong, and this is probably also the coolest Heihachi's ever been, in my opinion. Yeah, I think he's another character that's in a very good spot. Doesn't really need a whole lot. Like, could he be better? Obviously, right? Every character could be stronger, but a lot of these characters could definitely stand to be worse. I'm of the opinion that we could bring down the power of the game, and characters would still be fun, and the game would be fun, but a lot of these characters are probably going to move up even higher in terms of their overall strength going into season 2. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think that's going to round out my S tier. And so we already talked about June, and then moving on into the A+ tier. I'm thinking this is where I'll probably throw Hwadong. I think Hwadong is a character that's overrated by a lot of people who don't play him and like a lot of the more casual player base. But I don't think he's a bad character at all. I do think he does get overrated just a little bit. I think the problem with Hwo is that even though he has like these flamingo mix-ups and his pressure, and he has all these like plus frame mids, he's very committal. He's one of the few characters in the game that I think is actually like a high risk, high reward character, on top of being a lot more difficult to play than he gets credit for. Even though if you're playing online, you're up against random Joe Schmo in the blue ranks, it does just seem like they're just mashing and flailing and they're getting easy wins. But if you ask me, if you're just random Joe Schmo in the blue ranks, I think every character in the game is doing that. You know what I'm saying? When neither of you really know what you're doing, anybody just flails and wins. You know what I'm saying? But that being said, like I said, I think he is very risky as a character. I think in heat, his heat is very, very strong. And I think that's what carries a lot of where his strength is, because, you know, you talk about counter hit down back 4 into flappy kicks, the 2 jab into flappy kicks, just getting this ridiculous damage. That's probably going to get nerfed in season 2, I would imagine, and justifiably so, understandably so. Whether it's just they just reduce the scaling or makes that doesn't combo, whatever the case is, time will tell. We're going to see a little bit later today when we get those patch notes. But I want to know what he gets in exchange, if anything, because I feel like without that stuff in heat, he's not nearly as powerful as some of these other characters in the game. And I could be biased, you know, I play the character, so obviously I'm going to see his weaknesses more, or think about his weaknesses more than people who don't play him. But again, I don't think he's a bad character at all. I think he's strong, maybe even stronger than June, maybe. But definitely at least as strong as June. But yeah, but he is a character that feels like when you are wrong on your own offense, you die for it. And a lot of characters are doing things that are equally as powerful or more powerful, and they don't take nearly as much risk on their own turn as he does at times, in my opinion. Moving on, Asuka. We're talking about downplaying. I think Asuka is probably the most downplayed character in the game right now. Her and Jin are probably in that conversation. Lily as well. I guess some people might even say Reina gets downplayed a lot. Steve, I don't know if Steve is downplayed so much as he's just not talked about enough, in my opinion. But yeah, I think Asuka is very, very strong. She's a character that should be defensive, right? She's got parry, launching Sabaki, right? She gets full combo and is able to get a lot of damage off of that. But while she has these very powerful defensive tools and moves like that and back three, her offense just keeps getting better and better and better. And based off the match we saw between Reina and Asuka in the Tekken talk, her offense is getting even stronger, to the point where it's like, okay, well, this character was known to have a defensive identity, but her offense is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and she's already good as it is. So I find a hard time seeing her being like a bottom 5 character, a bottom tier character in this game, just because she seems very good to me. She's another character that I would compare to Yoshimitsu in a sense where she's kind of hard to hit. You don't really want to overextend, because she's got the back three, because she's got the Sabaki and the parry, because she's got sidestep too, because her power crush is so powerful. You don't really want to press into her too much. And I think that makes her very, very strong. She's one of the characters that can actually force you physically and like mentally to like slow down and like kind of pause for a second on offense in this game, in a game where offense is so strong and overwhelming. Next, I think we're gonna go with Kazuya. I think Kazuya is pretty damn good in this game. Like I said, I think there are no bad characters in the game. He's in A+ tier. Like in most games, that's going to be like a very strong character. The problem with Kazuya is that he is very difficult. I joke a lot and talk a lot about Kazuya players just because we don't got to get into it. But for what it's worth, I think Kazuya has some very good tools. He's got, you know, one of the best 50-50s in the game, but it is, you know, high risk, high reward, because you get that hell sweep blocked, you're going to die. He's got an electric, which is obviously a very, very powerful tool. He's got that stupid power crush in heat, by the way, the chica whatever it is. I actually don't know what he says, but that move is dumb. The new mid he's got from crouch dash is the crouch dash 1+2. Just made his pressure even better. And yeah, I think Kazuya is very good. It's just that the effort you're putting in for the reward that you get in return, I think, is a bit skewed in not his favor. So even though he has some strong things going for him, I just think that it's like kind of outclassed by other characters on the roster. Next, I think I want to go with Lee, who is one of the few characters in the game that feels like nothing really changes for him while he's in heat. I think he's probably a character that's going to benefit from some season 2 buffs where he gets access to some more tools in heat, because right now he doesn't really get that. But outside of that, I think Lee's very good. Strong pokes, strong counter hit tools. He's an evasive character as well. He's got a slide mix up just like Law. I will say his slide isn't as good as Law or Shaheen, because his doesn't knock down like theirs does, but I still think it's powerful. I will say I think his difficulty is a bit overrated, and he's a difficult character, right? And much like Kazuya, the difficulty in playing that character doesn't result in nearly as high as a reward, because I don't want to say he's Brian, but Brian is a character who's difficult, right? Steve is a character who's like considered difficult, and like they also rely on powerful counter hitting tools and like playing at your opponent's pace and getting them to like mash into you, whatever. But I just feel like the reward that Lee gets doesn't compare to the reward that a character like Brian gets, and so I will put him a little bit lower. And then we have Victor. I think I'll put Victor up here as well. He's another character that actually feels like there's a decent amount of risk involved with his reward. He's also very, very linear. A lot of his offense is super steppable. So it's kind of hard for him to get going at times. We've seen Farzine obviously still manage and excel with his character, but you really don't see too many others. Was Al playing Victor, I want to say, right? I think he was playing Victor and Alyssa. I don't think I mentioned Al, by the way, earlier when we were talking about Alyssa players. I blanked on that. There's a lot of players I haven't mentioned, right? When it comes to Steve, we always have like Newmon and Nian Lohai play this character. Reina, we've seen Yagami and Joka's played her, and Jun Ding and Ulsan. I hope to see a bit more Reina. Clive, I mean, everybody was playing Clive and now nobody's playing Clive. Paul, we've got Glaciating. I think Anakin was playing some Paul. Xiao Yu, we got Peeling, who might be the best Xiao Yu right now. Lily, we've seen Chicken, we've seen FeedX perform decently with this character as well. And who are some of the other prominent Lily players? I'm trying to think. Heihachi Joker's probably the premier Heihachi right now. I think Kudons was playing some Heihachi. Now, Kudons has been pretty loyal to Double J. I've seen Kudon streaming and playing Heihachi. I don't know if I've seen him play him in tournaments. I think it's only been Double Jin. Then when it comes to June, Kita and oh man, I'm drawing a blank on his name. There's a player from Pakistan that we just saw that plays June. He's been in multiple events, and I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. I have to look it up because now I got to give credit where credit is due. Usama Abasi. Usama Abasi is his name. A very powerful June player. Obviously, when it comes to Huarong, you got Speed Kicks, you got Kwis, you have Edge, who is the premier Huo player right now. Asuka, you got King Ray Jr., Fergus, Kazuya. It's really just Keisuke right now that we're seeing put him on the map. Lee, you got Super Akuma, Fighting GM, Victor, like I said, you got Farzine. But yeah, with Victor, going back to what I was saying, linear offense, doesn't have the best pokes, dies for getting his down back 4 blocked, dies for getting his Helm Breaker. I forget the input. Is it up 1+2, up 4 1+2 for getting that stepped. His heat smash is launch punchable as well. The low out of stance is also the sword sweep. I forget the input off the top of my head. That's also that also gets you killed. So you actually are taking great risk with his offense when you play him. He gets decent reward, but it's just you know, I don't think it's as good as the characters in the tier above him. Next we have Zafina, who is a character that has gotten buffed a decent amount, is continuing to get buffed in season 2 as we saw, so she might go up in the list. But right now Zafina is a character that she wins a lot online, right? Just because of like knowledge checks. But overall, I don't think she puts you in like the same kind of situations that some of these other characters do. And like when you start rushing her down, like when you get in, it's hard for her to kind of get rolling. I think once she does get going, she can be kind of strong and like hard to deal with. And I don't want to say oppressive because there's other characters that are far more oppressive than her, but like, you know, she can definitely get her thing rolling. But again, I just don't think she's as difficult to deal with as some of the other characters once you're more familiar with her from a knowledge standpoint, right? From a matchup standpoint. And then you have characters that I feel like kind of all in the same vein, where you have like Eddie, Lars, Leo, and then probably Lydia, who are all similar in the sense Lydia can be compared a little bit to Victor, where she's like super linear and maybe not as risky, but very linear offense. But these characters can constantly force you into mix-ups. These are very casino based characters that feel very strong once they get rolling, but it's kind of hard for them to get going. I think especially for Lydia, right? Lydia is a character that it's really difficult to get going with her, but once you do, you start cooking. Obviously her heat is very powerful. The unblockable, powerful mids, everything like that. Doesn't really have good lows. You could even argue maybe these characters are lower. But I think that they are strong. I think they're characters that just like, it does feel like it's hard for them to get going, but once you do, it's very strong. You have Eddie, who has, you know, stance after stance after stance, running 3 that's plus on block into another plus on block mid, into stance mix up, into 50-50, you know what I'm saying? Same thing goes with Lars, same thing goes with Leo. I would maybe argue that Eddie is probably the strongest out of these 4, in my opinion, or it could be Lars. I definitely think Eddie is stronger than Lydia and Leo. Like I said, this isn't necessarily in order, but it loosely is, I guess, but not really. Very loosely. Like if I sat here and try to actually put them all in order, it would look a little bit different. But regardless, casino characters forcing you into mix-ups, hard for them to get going. Some of them do rely a little bit on you not having certain matchup knowledge and everything like that, but I think these characters can still be, you know, can find success at a high level, just not as easily as these characters above them. And then for the bottom tier is basically everybody that's left except for Anna, because obviously she's not a season 1 character, so we don't know a whole lot about her. But Jack is a character that seems like really hard to be consistent with. He doesn't really have anything that stands out about him. You know, Azucena is a character who's fallen a lot from grace because of the nerfs that she got, even though she is getting buffed in the next season. Deviljin, Raven, and Panda, these characters just feel like they're super gimmicky. Deviljin historically is a character with like strong pokes and like fundamental tools and everything like that, but for whatever reason in Tekken 8, they've designed this character to be more gimmicky than anything else, and I'm not a fan of that. I don't think a lot of Deviljin fans are a fan of that. Yeah, I don't really know. And Panda is Kuma without the heat, so like all the gimmicks and like none of the actual strong stuff in heat that makes Kuma so powerful, and is just, yeah. I will say when it comes to Raven and Leroy, I could be underrating them or underappreciating them. We don't see these characters almost ever, so it's like kind of hard to judge a whole lot, and I'm certainly not the most knowledgeable on them, so it just could be my ignorance at play here. But it really does seem like Raven is akin to like Deviljin, at least like in my experience, because we don't really see a whole lot. Like there is Hayes, there is Pina, there is, I actually can't think of another Raven player off the top of my head. But yeah, like and obviously I'm not saying those players are gimmicky, but like every Raven player I fight just relies a lot on like doing very gimmicky things, and this character seems difficult to make work at a high level. But yeah, yeah, so that's pretty much it. I want to say that is my opinion on the roster so far. I probably should have zoomed in more for this. I just realized I did this whole video, and it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Hopefully I didn't mind too much, but I definitely could have zoomed in a little bit more on the site. But yeah, I like the way that looks. Overall, I like the way it looks. Like I said, it's very, very loosely, I guess, ordered in between the tiers. I'd probably rearrange it a little bit more if I was trying to actually put them in order. But all things considered, I think, yeah, I think I like that. Yeah, so that's pretty much how I feel about season 1 of Tekken 8 and where I think these characters stand right now. This is all about the change later tonight, but I just kind of want to have this up for myself, if nothing else, and just to give my opinion, my thoughts, to see how y'all feel about it. If there's anything that I said or placed in here that you think is super, super controversial, feel free to let me know. Yeah. Anyway, that's gonna do it for me. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hit this video with a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't already, so you can stay tuned for all this content I plan on bringing you. With all that being said, that's pretty much all I have today. Remember, nothing could happen to you from the bad. Later.